Today I'm going to deal with the poem Keeping Quiet by Pablo Neruda. Pablo Neruda, born in 1904 in the country of Chile and died in 1973. During that period, the kind of meditation that people had in his country was mainly connected with sitting very quietly, reflecting upon nature, reflecting upon how one would feel in certain company, and reflecting upon what one has done. This is the kind of meditation that was in common use because it was the kind of meditation proposed by the Catholics there in Chile. And I believe that this poem deals with such kind of meditation, a kind of meditation into what you could have done better. So here we have who this man, Ricardo Reis Basalto, which is his real name, was. Neruda's poems are full of easily understood images which make them no less beautiful. Now, this is the man who makes sure that there are lots of simple, easy to understand images to illustrate all his poems. And though they are very simple, they are very beautiful. He won the Nobel Prize for Literature in the year 1971. In this poem, Neruda talks about the necessity of quiet introspection. That is what CBSE has asked us to think about by placing these words, this word introspection, in the introduction. So this is the kind of meditation that is supposed to be followed by us through the advice of the poet, and creating a feeling of mutual understanding among human beings. The purpose of this introspection is creating a feeling of mutual understanding among human beings. Now, this understanding, mutual understanding, is to be brought out through introspection, which means you look into yourself, see what you have done wrong, and understand how you got to exist in society. Okay, let's go to the poem. Now we will count to 12. The poem starts with the word now. Right now. We will count to 12. Who? I and you. That's what is we. We will count to 12. So he's asking us to count up to 12. Why not up to 10? What is the significance of this 12? In my understanding, 12 represents the 12-hour marks in the clock, because time is marked in segments of 12. You have 12 hours in the day, and the same clock measures 12 hours of darkness, and you have 12 months, and again at the end of the 12th month, the first month starts again. So there is a kind of clock-like roundness, as if each month were 1 hour slot in a year-long clock. So there is a kind of similarity there also. Looks like time is cyclic. It goes round and round, and it does not have a beginning and an end. So, something that does not have an beginning and end keeps on going round and round, as it is in the case of the clock, as it is in the case of the year. So, in the same way, what is probably trying to ask you to do is to make sure that you wait and wait and wait and don't stop waiting. He doesn't just want you to do it, he says, I'm in it too. Let us now, we will count to 12 means we will wait to 12, right? We will wait to 12 and we will keep still. Now, I have just told you there is no stopping. Go on from 1 to 12 and then again start with 1. But here, what he says in the second line is, and we will all keep still. What I feel is, at the end of the first 12, let us keep still. Right? So, he's talking about let us wait for a long period of time, and that may be very, very long. Let it be however long. Let's have the patience to wait through all of it. And at the end of it, when the time is ripe, let us keep quiet. Right? So that's how he starts it off. For once on the face of the earth, he's talking about the result of keeping quiet at that one moment in the year or in a long time, at one moment in a long period of time. Let us keep quiet, and the result will be, for once on the face of earth, let's not speak in any language. At the end of the keeping still, let us not speak any language. For once, let us not speak any language, meaning we have always been speaking some language, and this once let us not do it. Let us not speak any language. There is the language of the word, there's the language of gestures, there's the language of art, there is the language of music. There are so many ways of communication. He says, let us shut all of that down. Right? Let's stop for 1 second and not move our arms so much. Let us stop for a short time. One is probably in the unit, let us say in the calculation of the 12 that I referred to earlier. One is the absolute start, the simplest, the atomic, the basic unit. Let us that 1 second. Now he talks about second, which means he's talking about time when he talks about 12. So that probably, usually, if you, the exact opposite of, let's say, the end of second and the starting of the end of the next minute is 60, right? There are 60 seconds to a minute. What he's saying is, let's not talk about seconds, let's talk about 12, which could be hours, which could be years. I don't know, maybe it's an impossibly long time, and here this 1 second is the shortest possible time. It says, let's give the shortest possible time to quietness, not talking so much, not moving our hands and legs. Now, the moving of hands is symbolic of work. Let's not work, he says. Let's shut down all kinds of work. It would be an exotic moment when we have a holiday like that, not doing any work. It will be a real exotic moment, a moment that we are not used to. In places like Japan, they say that it is very difficult for them to keep quiet. They try to work all through. I think in South Korea also it is the same way. They don't have the concept of holidays so much. They keep working, and therefore for people like that, for people of the world, the competitive world in which we live, holiday is a rarity, right? And when it is a rarity like that, a moment of holiday, a small break in the routine of day-to-day life will be something unheard of, unfelt, or unexperienced, and therefore it would be special, exotic, without rush. It'll be so exotic, so greatly different, not having any movement, any hurry, any rush, without engines, without any mode of production, like industries, like making things, like providing services, whatever. There will be no thing like that, no such thing. We would all be together in a sudden strangeness. Now, he didn't say, I'm going to do this. He says, we will do it. And when we do it, we'll have a special moment. And in that special moment, we will be together in it. We will all have a holiday at the same time. We will all stop all kinds of competition, conflict, one-upmanship, whatever, right? Fishermen in the cold sea would not harm whales. Fishermen are symbolic of people who involve in a trade that is older than any other trade. Maybe fishing is probably one of the oldest. If you actually think of the Christian idea, if you think of the whole thing on the basis of something Christian, you'd say the first things that were created in the sea. Maybe science also substantiates it for some to a certain extent, which means maybe the oldest kind of job in a Christian perspective would be fishing. Even the most rudimentary of workers, the fishermen, would not go out hunting for fish to such an extent that even if they get the prize of all catches, which is the whale, they would not hunt it. Fishermen in the cold sea, now the cold sea represents a sea which is not full of fish, a sea which is devoid of fish, somewhere in the Arctic or something like that, where it is very difficult to get any fish. In a sea like that, a fisherman would be very happy to get the smallest of fish. But if he does get the biggest, which is the whale, he would not hunt it. Now, he's saying we need a commitment like that to keeping quiet. Whatever the opportunity, if Sunday, working on a Sunday or working on a holiday or any other kind would fetch you additional money, great amount of money, you would not still take that opportunity to work, which is not something that the world does. People work on Sundays when they think that they need that money, that extra money. And if you make the money that they can get on a Sunday much more, the money that they can get on a holiday much more than what they can get during a working day, a lot of people would be tempted not to have that holiday and go ahead with work. Now, this is the scene that is played out here. Fishermen in the cold sea would not harm whales. And here is another example of the most oldest of work, right? And a man gathering salt, right? Salt, you are the salt of the earth. That is the statement that you are the salt of the earth. If salt loses its taste, then what will you salt the earth with? Something of that kind. Maybe that is the import of of that statement, right? Now, the salt need not be necessarily gathering salt that is naturally available, right? It could be any kind of very simple job, the most simplest job. The man gathering salt would look at his hurt hands. Now, the man gathering salt is very similar to the fisherman in the cold sea. The first concept that is played out is the fishermen in the cold sea would not hunt whales, would not be tempted even by whales. And the second way in which the poet looks at it is that same fisherman would start instead to look at his hurt hands. Now, to make it look a little more like a reason for person to look at his hands, the poet has used the man gathering salt instead of the fisherman. A man gathering salt would, because salt is very abrasive. If you're not very careful with it, if you don't handle it, suppose you're gathering salt, you need to, in a salt, a field of salt, if you want to dig salt, you go around with gumboots and you make sure that none of the salt gets to your head, because the more you handle salt, the more abrasive, the more likelihood of your burning your skin, hurting yourself, right? Any job and every job, in certain ways, creates a kind of damage to oneself. If you look at the process of growth of muscles, building muscles, how does it actually happen? When you exercise, when you strain your muscles, micro tears take place in your muscle, and this is repaired during rest. So that rest is inbuilt in our system. If you work out day in and day out, you'll only worsen the tear. You should lay off the workout so that the body can repair itself. Now, this is the idea here. The idea that Pablo Neruda is trying to bring out is you need rest. Why do you need rest? To look at yourself and see how much hurt you're doing to yourself. Now, if you look at the picture beside the lesson, or the in page number 95, you have the picture of a globe with a plant. If you see an older book, I have an older book, you find the word can written in reverse, printed in reverse beneath it, right? I do not know what that really could mean. Probably, it enhances what is there in the picture. What is there in the picture? There is a man with leaves in his hands. In fact, it's not he's holding the leaves. His hands extend into leaves, and his feet extend into the ground of which is in the shape of the globe. And how does it extend downwards? As roots, which mean the earth and us are one being. So when you're looking into yourself at your hurt hands, you're not only looking into yourself, you're looking at a part of yourself which is the earth itself, the whole of the universe. When God made man the boss of everything that is, he didn't make him the boss in order to have fun with everything that is around and not look after it. Being a boss means taking care of what is given to you. It's not just exploiting what is given to you. It's taking care. It's ensuring that it produces more. It's ensuring that it is better. Like if you're given a house, and if you just take advantage of every facility in the house without looking after it, with no maintenance, the house would be in ruins in no time, right? And if you are to take advantage of all the facilities there without switching on the motor, for example, in order to get water into the tank or paying the electricity bill, you're not going to, that house is not going to be in a good state by the time you leave it. In fact, in a very short time, everything is going to get worse. And this, when everything gets worse with the world that you live in, you make your life miserable. So, in your well being is the well being of the earth, and the well being of the earth is your well being. We are mutually dependent on each other.